So, this thing apparently doesn't fit when you have gauges in your ears, so it's kind of like slipping off. It's pretty cool. So yeah, we have made the absolute most egregious mistake we possibly can, giving me the microphone and letting me say whatever I want. So if you've just been hanging around, hoping to witness the demise of Foundation Church, this could be it. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Patrick Armstrong. I'm married to the good Reverend Jessica Armstrong. And I am a director here at Foundation Church, director of finger paints and catchphrases, I don't know. So they asked me to do things, and I do the things. I'm also heavily involved with the band, which is why they asked me to speak today. And them asking me to speak is part of why I responded, oh good, you've actually lost your minds. So I'm the ultimate introvert. This is very out of character for me. But as the ultimate introvert, which is an actual title, by the way, you have to campaign for it, I enjoy a very economical approach to communication. So as we're on this little journey together today, no matter how awful it gets, you can rest in the knowledge that it'll be over quickly. I guess I should talk about worship while we're here. You know. So I had some slides for you. It would have said worship up there. But I guess I'll stop making jokes and actually talk about something. On that note, would you stand with me for the reading of the word? We're going to be in Romans 12 today, verses 1 and 2. It says, "Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in the view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Thank you. So, what do you think of when you think of worship? For most of us, one of the first things we're going to think of is singing songs to God. That is the thing that is specifically called worship. But it's so much more than that, because the essence of worship is bringing glory and honor to God. So you can sing songs to God. You can profess verbally his glory, his adoration. But you can also give of your time, give of your resources, give of your skills. Basically, when you give up your own will to honor God's will, that can be an act of worship. And as I was working on this, one of the first things that I thought was that worship is training. And I kind of started working through that, and I realized it's not quite the right word. Because training, when you think of training, you think of like a personal trainer, at least I do, where their job is to motivate and to instruct, whereas worship is more relational. It's a two-way thing. So you think about a couple. Two people who've been married for a long time, or two people who've been friends for decades, BFFs. When you spend a lot of time with somebody over a long period of time, your personalities tend to merge. Jess and I, we've been married for 15 years, and we have a lot of quirks and mannerisms and turns of phrase that we didn't share 15 years ago. So when you spend a lot of time with someone, you start to behave like them. When you spend time with God, worshiping, praying, practicing things like the Sabbath, you become more like him. That's part of the concept of being with Jesus, becoming like Jesus, doing what he did. When you spend time earnestly seeking to be with Jesus, you can't help but become more like him. Our relationships form us. Worship forms us. So I came up with two ways that it forms us. The first is that worship informs our theology. So in Colossians 3:15 and 16, it says, "Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you were called to peace, and be thankful. Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom through psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts." Many of the songs that we sing, they take their lyrics directly from Scripture. In Psalm 8, that last song, was that the last song? That last song that we just sang, the lyrics say, "When I look at your heavens, the moon and stars you set in motion, O God, I sing all glory and honor. What is man that you are mindful, the Son of Man that you would care for him? We sing all glory and honor." If you look at the Scripture, Psalm 8, verse 3 and 4, it says, "When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, what is mankind that you are mindful of them, human beings that you care for them?" When we sing these songs, we reinforce our knowledge of Scripture. And that's why at Foundation Church, we are very careful about which songs make the set list on a Sunday morning, because there are a lot of popular worship songs out there that have no real scriptural basis. Occasionally you'll find one that actually, it sounds biblical, but it actually contradicts Scripture. So we want to choose songs that give you an accurate picture of God, because that is reinforcing what you have in your heart. So that's theology. The second way that worship forms us is that it informs our identity. So we're going from learning about God to being transformed by God. So, since the birth of modern psychology, experts have debated whether our personalities are more formed by nature, our biology, our physiology, our genetics, or if it's formed more by nurture, our life experience, our upbringing, our parents, our education. In the book, Who Are You Really?, Dr. Brian Little presents a third defining influence, which is our actions. He essentially says that our actions define who we are, and this seems a little counterintuitive because you think we generally talk about behavior in terms of behavior being a result of personality or character. But it turns out that our actions can actually influence that as well. Humans are unique among the creatures that live on this earth in many ways. One of them is that we are able to act out of character. We're able to defy our natural instincts. And that phrase, acting out of character, it can actually have a dual meaning. You can act out of character. This part worked a lot better with the slides. It gets a little confusing here. We'll get there. You can act out of character, or you can act out of character. That is, behave from who you are. So, case in point, for me, speaking into people's lives and speaking life into them and appreciating our shared humanity is immensely important to me. Now, a few years ago, that was not something I was interested in doing. Again, I hold the office of ultimate introvert. But as I've, over the last few years, leaned into that, I've found a lot of purpose in that. What I find is that pattern of behavior is actually shaping who I am, where it's no longer unnatural to speak into someone's life, to care for them, to take the time to see them. That's become very natural for me. Also, speaking up here in front of all of you is extremely out of character for me. I'd much rather be in the back taking care of the behind-the-scenes stuff. But even though it doesn't fit my personality, I'm doing it because it matters to me, because you matter to me, because speaking life into people matters to me, and honoring God that way matters to me. as I've made that pattern of conscious choice to worship through that way, it's shifted my perspective. So we'll return to Romans 12. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will.